providing instructions in Spanish, how to participate in this meeting in Spanish language.
Sí, hola, buenas tardes y bienvenidos a la reunión de Shafter. Aquí en la pantalla va a poder ver cómo ingresar a la interpretación de español, al canal de eso. Simplemente va a buscar el logotipo de interpretación o un mundo y ahí va a querer seleccionar eso y aparte también va a querer oprimir el botón de Spanish o español. Y así va a poder ingresar y escuchar el idioma de español, pero también quiere agregar o oprimir el botón que dice Mute Original Audio, que significa silenciar audio original. En caso de que tenga algún problema técnico a través de Zoom, puede llamar al número de teléfono que está aquí en la pantalla para si lo gusta apuntar. El número de teléfono es el 844-867-6169 y el código de acceso es 508-3396 y tecla o número o signo de número. Aparte si tenga algún problema técnico a través de Zoom. ¿Alguna pregunta en este momento que no pueda ingresar al español? Okay, parece que no escucho nada, entonces vamos a poder seguir. Hannah, I think we're go ahead and good to proceed.
Great, thank you so much. And Zan, we are good. We can record now. Great. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Hannah Stelmakovich, and I am a member of the facilitation team from the nonprofit ILG. My colleague this evening is Julia Salinas. I don't know if you can see her or not, but she is waving at you. And there's just a team of two for working with you today. Julia is my tech buddy, and she is helping on the back end with any Zoom logistics, technical difficulties, renaming, things like that. So if you need any help with technical difficulties with Zoom, please chat with Julia Salinas privately. As always, the ILG team will be facilitating this conversation, and our goal is to offer neutral guidance and capture community voices and priorities as you continue to implement your SERP in Shafter. We're happy to help you with any problems you have throughout the meeting. We are here to keep this meeting on time and make sure we go through all our agenda items and provide space for all of you to participate and share your thoughts. I'm going to circle back to Mari one more time to make sure everyone is set on the Spanish line.
Ok, vamos a preguntar otra vez de nuevo si hay alguna persona que está teniendo algún problema técnico para poder entrar a escucharlo en español. Ok, no escucho nada, entonces creo que podemos seguir. We can go ahead and proceed, Hannah.
Okay, great. So what's on our agenda today? Today, there are a lot of updates on the agenda. Besides our traditional stand-in update, we will hear from Air District and Partner Agency. We will also hear enforcement updates and updates on ongoing SERP implementation. Rand will go over several SERP measures such as land use planning, vegetative barriers and urban greening, school bus replacement, lawn and garden equipment replacement. But we also have an open floor discussion where you have an opportunity to talk about this and other SERP measures and ask questions. So a lot of different updates are going your way. This meeting is going to be very informative. And as always, each month we incorporate agenda items that this committee wants to hear, and you contribute these preferences during the agenda setting meetings. So thank you for participating and letting us know what's important, what this meeting should be about. We're going to move to our Zoom virtual etiquette, and just a brief reminder for those of you who are new to this meeting, and I'm going to ask my colleague Julia to switch to scroll through the slides.
Okay, let me just jump in real quick. There's a few people that need to rename themselves. I see Trish Johnson, Lily Wu, and I think, let's see, Karen Buckley. I think that's it. But yeah, if you have not renamed yourself, feel free to here based on the abbreviations here. And let me know if you have any issues. Feel free to direct message me in the chat. Thank you. I'll scroll forward now.
Great, thank you, Julia. Next slide, please. Okay, so can we go to agendas slide, please. So as I mentioned, if you haven't had a chance to see this slide, a lot of updates are coming your way during this meeting. Okay, and our virtual meeting etiquette is, as always. Next slide, please. We're asking you kindly to stay on mute so we can minimize our background noise. If you would like to participate, go ahead and raise your blue hand, which is on the bottom of your screen under the participants or reactions. If you cannot find your blue hand by any reason, just text to Juliet privately and she'll walk you through Zoom instructions. Use your chat box to communicate additional thoughts and comments or questions. And as always, the chat discussion is not private, even though you're using direct messaging function, which is a private function. And if you have any troubles using your computer audio, there's a way to link your computer audio to your cell phone so you have a better connection. Just feel free to stop this meeting at any time and we'll walk you through how to switch to the phone audio so we can hear you very well during your comments. Next slide, please. And as always, this meeting is open to public. And at the end of the meeting, at about 6:50 or 6:55, or perhaps earlier, we will have a public comment period. So feel free, if you're participating on Facebook or you're watching this video via YouTube Live, feel free to drop your comments or questions as we go, and we will address your comments and questions at the end of the meeting. And if you're here with us on Zoom right now, welcome. At the end of the meeting, again, you can utilize this chat function or you will be asked to raise your blue hand so we can hear you verbally. That's a couple quick reminders before we turn it to Ryan for his welcome. This meeting is being recorded and is being streamed live on YouTube. If renaming yourself is incredibly important, thank you, Julia, for chiming in, especially if you're a resident and if you're eligible for the stipend. We want to capture your attendance, and the only way to capture that is by renaming yourself. And Bianca, we already captured attendance of several residents. Thank you for dropping their names in the chat box. And as a reminder, to be eligible for stipend, you have to be present for at least 75% of this meeting, which is about an hour and a half. Couple more reminders before I pass it to Ryan. This is a space where all of you come together and you work with the Air District and community partners to implement your SERP measures. This is the space for open dialogues, brainstorming solutions, identifying solutions, and discussing challenges. And as a reminder, your participation is an incredibly important part of this process, and your opinion matters. It's okay to disagree, but please be respectful, empathetic, and civil. Please respectfully challenge the ideas and outcomes and never attack the person. It's a good rule of thumb to honor every person's humanity and dignity. And with that, I would love to pass it to community co-host, but no one volunteered today. So please, we expect a lot of volunteers at the end of this meeting. However, right now, I'm gonna pass it to Ryan.
Thanks, Hannah. I just wanna once again say good evening to everybody, and thank you for continuing to devote your time and your efforts towards helping to implement the Shafter SERP. And we have some good updates for you, and we're working hard to work with CARB to get additional incentive project plans approved, and creating more opportunities for more clean air efforts within the community, in addition to the things that all of you have already spent a lot of time and effort seeing get approved. So thank you, and at this point, I'll turn it back over to you, Hannah. Thanks.
Right. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, let's move on to our standing updates, and we're going to start with the Air District talking about implementing air monitoring in Shafter community. And I think I have Chai or Brett on the line.
Yeah, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. So just very brief update here. As you all may have seen, we're still continuing to work with Kern County to install air monitoring at the park on Martinez Street in Mexican Colony. So we have reviewed the agreement. They have reviewed a little bit of it and have given us some input. But right now, what's putting it on hold for a little bit is the entire park plan is being sent to the city's engineering review. So that'll be sometime in, they're thinking sometime in August when they will get that completed. And once that gets completed, we'll have a better idea of some of the electrical costs and infrastructure and all of that to help us finish off the lease agreement. And then from there on, we can get the equipment installed. In addition to that, we have also updated, as many of you may have already seen, updated and enhanced the air pollution charts that are on our website. And we have also added all the additional pollutants onto those. Whereas before we used to have just PM2.5 and ozone, now we have NOx, BTEX, H2S, and so forth in there. So if you haven't seen it, when you get a chance, please take a quick look at it. And let's see, I think that's about it. And oh yeah, just a really brief update on 4th of July in case anybody is interested. If you look at the charts, you'll see that we did catch some spikes in there during the fireworks, right between 7 to 9 o'clock, where 8 o'clock is where we see the spikes in PM2.5 and PM10 at. And what we noticed was that closer in the city, we see the spikes, and farther out, there were no indications of any increases in PM2.5 or PM10. So for example, at the Farm Labor Center, we didn't see any spikes, nor at Sequoia Elementary, that's farther up north, that didn't really detect any spikes in PM2.5 or PM10. But at the DMV and also at Golden Oak Elementary, we did see some spikes in emissions there for PM2.5 and PM10. And that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys may have.
Hey, Chai, since we do have some time, maybe you could just pull up and navigate and show the members how they can see that information for themselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Ran, you're reading my thoughts. And meanwhile, you're welcome to think about any questions as Chai showing you how to get to that incredibly important data that we've heard from you for so many times that you would like to see this additional data tracked.
So let me go to the home page. So it's a little bit.
Can you zoom in the image a little bit, Chai?
I'm trying to, the computer is a bit slow right here. Let me see if.
Looks like you're, here it is.
Can you guys see it? So on our main page, and then you go to AB 617, Community Air Monitoring.
You can also just Google AB 617.
Oh yeah, Google's really good too, yeah.
Minus one step.
And then you can go to the Shafter monitoring page. You can see here, there's all the all our air monitoring site locations. So for example, let's say Farm Labor Center. So go to this location here, and then you have all the pollutants here. PM2.5, ozone, benzene, ethyl benzene, all of them here. So if you as you click on it, so for example, if we want to see ozone, you click on ozone, and it'll show you the ozone for today. And if you can look back and say if we want to see what ozone is yesterday, we go on to the 11th, and it'll show you what the ozone level was for yesterday. And then you can do it for all the various pollutants here too. So we go to PM2.5, and then it'll show you what the PM2.5 yesterday was. Yep, that's pretty much it. And so you'll see it here in the chart here. And if you want to see the exact values on the right-hand side here, it shows by the hour, shows you the values, so you can see the exact values on the right-hand side as well. And these for the ones that are, for example, like for ozone and PM2.5, we also have these numbers here to, these are our ROAR numbers that we use for RAN to, and if you want to understand what these mean, you can click on this guideline and it'll tell you, like level 1 means outdoor activity is okay for all the way to level 5 where everyone should avoid outdoor activity.
Hey, Chai.
Yes.
Just another feature on that page, if you scroll to the top. So on the upper right-hand side, it says language.
Oh, yeah.
So just to make sure that everybody understands that this, if you press this language button, it'll convert everything on the page to Spanish. Or it should have.
Well, this one's probably a little bit different because there's not much to convert. Probably potentially maybe the guidelines might not have caught the guidelines here. If we probably go some other page, we'll probably see that. Let's move out. Because we don't have much. Let's see here. Let's try it here. Yeah, maybe not the monitoring page.
No, I mean, it's working for me, Chai. So I mean,
yeah.
I think you clicked English. Oh, I don't know.
Maybe something with my
Your browser.
Yeah, could be my browser setting or something.
Okay. Well, it should work. So I mean, pressing that button should translate the whole page into Spanish. If it is not, or if anybody runs into any issues, please let us know.
Yeah, and we'll figure out here internally, maybe if I'm experiencing some issues here, it might be some setting that we can let everyone else know as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for that update, Chai. So as you can see, the web pages are up and running with various pollutants, just like you requested. And this information is available in English and in Spanish. Please test the web pages and let the air district know if something is not right. Chai, we do have a question for you. Oh.
I was going to raise one more thing. Maybe you can look to address. I know it had come up about needed maintenance for equipment and sometimes equipment having to be taken offline. Chai, maybe you can discuss that a little bit.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, all our equipments, they have different maintenance needs, but in general, there is the routine calibrations that we do on our equipment just to make sure that when we calibrate it, just to make sure that whatever we're measuring is actually what the measurement should be. So we do, for example, like for our PM2.5, we do that on an annual basis. And when that's done, what we call a zero calibration check, we do those. It may take up to 72 hours. And so those are the longer times when it's down, but that's only once a year. And then there's other routine like filter replacements and other gas calibrations that we do, but some of those are more frequent, but each time we do it, it does not take as long. So for example, like doing flow checks and cleaning our monitors, those take about an hour. And so that means we'll have 1 hour where we won't have any measurements, and those are done every month. And then we have also like for our PM2.5, it uses a tape and it detects the amount of particulate onto it. And that's how it tells how much PM2.5 we have. So that tape needs to be changed roughly every 2 months. And so that could take 1 or 2 hours. So we do have quite a bit of filter replacements. Some of them even as much as on a weekly basis, but those are from 30 minutes to 2 hours. And then we have, like I said, more of the annual ones that may take a little bit longer, like up to 72 hours, where the unit will be down for that time period. And then once in a while, we'll get certain situations like what we had in the 4th of July weekend here, where the we just had some equipment failure. And in those cases, we'll definitely, like what we've been doing, let you know on it being down. And then once that gets fixed, as soon as we can get to it, we'll also let you know as well.
Thank you for that update, Chai. And we do have a question for you in the chat box from Linda about the status of air monitoring on July 3rd. And there were some fireworks. And Bianca, I do see your hand too.
Oh, what was that? Oh, there's some, not just on July 4th, but on July 3rd?
July 3rd, yes.
Let's see here. I don't remember seeing any abnormal spikes during that time period. But we can take a look at it to see. And in fact, we can even take a look at the. Let me just go back to the website, and there we can go to July 3rd. Let me just share my page again. So if it's in the city, like on July 4th, we'll see that we're in town. So let's go to July 3rd. And so what this shows us is that, yeah, so there was a slight, we did see a slight peak over here at 26 micrograms. This is right between, so 24 is midnight, and 22 is 10 o'clock. So right around 11 o'clock p.m., we did experience a bit of a spike up 26. But just for comparison, you see that, and you can go to July 4th, and you'll see that, yeah, we have a spike of 89. And that's when I think there was a whole lot more fireworks going on during that time period, right around the 10 o'clock range here.
Great. Linda, excellent question. I think a lot of us learning in real time how to look at this data and how to read it and how to compare. Thank you, Chai. Bianca, I see your hand. Bianca, I see that you're on mute, but
I
Bianca, we cannot hear you at all. Your internet.
A question in regards to monitors.
Bianca,
Hello?
we cannot. No, we cannot hear you. We could not hear anything. Maybe like
Maybe you can type it in the chat.
The last time the headphone solution worked.
How about now? Can you hear me now?
It's a little better.
It's a little bit better. So
Yes.
there's a concern in regards to the monitors being having the maintenance in the time frame of 4th of July. Is there any possibility? I know you had mentioned that it's done annually, but
Yeah. No,
can it be done?
No, I mean, that's something.
Before 4th of July, because it does.
Bianca, now you're
muted.
I don't know if you captured that question.
Yeah, so we didn't do any maintenance during the 4th of July weekend. And we understand that's a really critical time period. So we did not do it during that time. Unfortunately, one of them at Grimway, we had an equipment failure at that location, and we could not access the school grounds during that time, during that weekend when it was off. So we weren't able to get that fixed, but we did fix it immediately right after on Tuesday when everything was back up and opening. So we we are definitely aware of those situations, and we do not want to have any type of maintenance during that time period. Because I know that we're concerned with those emissions.
Bianca, I see, did we answer your question? Any other follow-up questions for Chai before we move into next standing updates? Bianca, your internet is not.
If there's that is kind of even. Hello?
Bianca, your audio quality is very poor. We cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now? I'm trying to move all around the house.
Well, let's
Can you hear me now?
Let's try this location for a second.
Okay. So one thing that is alarming, because for the Mexican colony, one of the stipulations that the air district wanted to have an easy access to monitor if things do go wrong. And if in the Grimway Academy, there is no one to be available in case of if the monitor goes down, that is alarming. There should be somebody in hand or an easy access for the air district to come in and out. That's just it's just a comment that I wanted to give out, that if in the Mexican colony you're giving stipulations on how monitors should be placed, why isn't it the same rule to all the rest of the monitors in the air district?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely the ideal situation. And whenever we place it in a location, that's what we would like to have it, so that we can access it whenever we want. But unfortunately, especially with the schools, and in those locations, we really have to abide by their requirements, and they can be and it can be strict to the way that we access it. For example, like we can't just go in at any time within school grounds. We do have to check in with the schools onto that. So that's definitely, it's a challenge when especially during like weekends like that, or holiday, especially weekend holidays like that. So again, we haven't seen a lot of issues where I think it's very coincidental that it just happened during that time period, and it was just happened to be that 4th of July weekend, but hasn't been much of an issue throughout all of our sites. And we do have quite a few sites that are at schools.
Yeah, well, I think it is definitely one of the trade-offs. I think we've been very fortunate that Richland School District and other school districts have been willing to partner with us and allow the installation of the air monitoring equipment. They understand the importance of it, and so they've allowed us to place it there. And getting good data, it's reflective of the air that not only the community, but especially the children are breathing. So I mean, we definitely heard the steering committee on the importance of placing the monitors where possible at the school sites. And this is one drawback, but like Chai said, I mean, this is, I think, one of the very few. It just timing absolutely could not be any worse. For something like this to happen. But if you look at over the entirety of the air monitoring campaign to date, we've only had a few instances of equipment breaking down.
Thanks, Ryan. Any questions for Chai on air monitoring from our Spanish-speaking participants on the Espanol channel?
It doesn't sound like we have any at this moment.
Okay, well, I don't see any other hands raised. So if you can think of anything else, feel free to use the chat box and drop your questions or comments for Chai, and he will get back to you. Okay, we're gonna keep moving on. Next, we're gonna have updates from our partner agencies, and we're gonna start with Min Fang with the Department of Pesticide Regulation.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Hopefully everybody had a good 4th of July. Just wanted to come in and do a few updates for you relevant to this community and also with my AIR program. So I believe in the past we've come and talked about higher than normal detections that we've seen based on our air monitoring network in the Sequoia Elementary School, the Shafter region. We spoke about a January detection prior. One other one that we and this is my fault, I dropped the ball on this. We should have spoken about a little bit earlier, but we were collecting all the data. There was a high level detection on October 16th at that area, the detection level of 37.5. That doesn't exceed the acute, the 24-hour threshold, which is set at 110 ppb, but it did elevate the subchronic screening level, which is our rolling, for that one, a 13-month average. We also evaluated for an ongoing annual chronic, which is annual yearly, and that also it came close, but it did not exceed that. That one set at 2 parts per billion, 2 ppb. So what that means is, I believe in this forum, I've spoke about screening levels and regulatory targets before. This is one of the screening levels that are set by DPR. So these levels are based on preliminary assessments of public health effects. So a measured concentration that exceeds this doesn't necessarily indicate a health concern, but it does indicate that we need to take a look and refine our mitigation measures. And that's basically what my program has been charged to do. So this exceedance for the subchronic, we took a look at it. We started pulling more information.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you just real quick. I'm receiving a message from Maricela to slow a little bit down for our Spanish translator to catch up with you.
Gotcha. Sorry about that. So yes, so in general, the area of Shafter has been under a microscope with my team. We've been following every detection level that has come up in some form or fashion. So everything that has come up with Shafter region, we've always gone through a QA/QC process. This process isn't any different here. What it is we actually noticed the subchronic elevation. So we went ahead and did modeling similar to what we did for the January 11th detections. And I'm sorry, I think I said 13 months before. It should be 13 weeks for the subchronic. So just a clarification on that. So we take a look and we try to do various modeling to see if we can pinpoint a source. And we work closely with the local CAC, the Kern County CAC, to get information about applications throughout the area, throughout that time span. And we try to use that along with any available data that we have to try to do modeling and try to pinpoint a source. It could possibly be, 1 field, 2 fields, whatever it may be. We take a look at all the available information to do that. So my team is still currently going through a lot of that information. I think what it's showing is we also wanted to, there was going to be some data gaps that we wanted to address. So that's one of the things that the Shafter region and through processes that we've been working with y'all, what we wanted to do was implement a few extra things. I think I've talked about it before. We've started to implement a full weather station in the Shafter region. So now we have continuous real-time weather data throughout the year, and which is pivotal to one of the inputs that we need for modeling. We're also doing a handful of the pilot projects, which has been happening in and around that area. We've been targeting fields in and around the Shafter region, doing both the edge of field monitoring that I spoke about before as part of that pilot project, but also on a couple occasions doing some concurrent work with running our AMN station during that same time that an application is happening. So we're still gathering data and going back and forth with all that. The lab we've been working with, obviously everybody's been hit with COVID, so that's not an excuse, but we've had some slowdowns and some challenges over the last years, but we're trying to overcome that and pick all that up right now. Some of the other ongoing things that kind of triggered and kind of piqued our attention of trying to get additional data in the area is we're looking at a US EPA potential grant for the area to do soil temperature. We're also building out a soils characteristic database for the region. And amongst other things, we obviously targeting additional edge of field sampling events out there so that we can take a look at different conditions, different time of year, and how they affect emissions concentrations and air concentrations. In the future, we actually hope to work on some sort of seasonal type of application study. We got a little bit of plans for not necessarily just for the chapter, but for all of the AB 617 communities. So we're really trying to take a look at what's possible and what we can target. So yeah, so in response, I mean, we're always taking a look at these elevated concentrations if they come up. If any detections come up, we're doing the QA/QC. We're constantly calculating the subchronic and the yearly averages through the time span. So as I mentioned before, we have that low delay from when the lab gets the data to us, but once we get it, we do our due diligence to run through it as quickly as possible. So yeah, I think that it's, taking a look at what the AMN was built to do. It was designed as a long-term evaluation study, and I think it's serving its purpose right now. It's being asked to go a little bit outside of its abilities. So my team is trying to take a look, on top of just evaluating trends over time. Our team also does continuous evaluation to make sure that if current mitigation measures are not performing the way that we want them to, we go in and we fix those. So overall, like I said, it's not meant for some of the stuff, but we're trying to use the best possible science to dictate some of these investigations that we're doing. But just to close it out, I just wanted to kind of touch base on some of the short-term goals with the community and also some of the long-term. Obviously, with the short-term goals, excuse me, we're constantly taking a look at detections. If they come up, we're verifying them. We're working with the CACs to pull data from their use records. We're matching it against our pesticide use reporting data as well. We're also using the region as a testing bed for quite a bit of our modeling and our edge of field application study work. And we'll continue to update the steering community as we get more and more of that information. Long term, obviously, all these feed into building out a more robust scientific database. That foundation is pivotal for us because it's essentially what drives mitigation measures. And those mitigation measures for not just this pesticide, but all pesticides, we're aiming to, combat or address acute, subchronic, chronic exposures throughout the state. So with this work that we're doing, along with the 1,3D pilot project that currently is existing in the community, we're hoping that, we can build towards that, because at the end of the day, we want long-lasting results. We don't want to go out there, have our science be overturned for any reason, and then that's no good for anybody, because then it puts us into a bad spot and things fall through. So that's just a general update that I wanted to give you guys. We'll be having some more documentation, hopefully, as my team gets more concise investigatory data. Obviously, I can't speak a lot of it because it is investigatory. We're trying to take a look at all the odds and ends before we come out with it. But yeah, with that, I'll take any questions. Not very exciting this week. So.
Thank you,
Actually, before sorry, Hannah, before I go, on the docket, we actually do have. I think we're scheduled to potentially do 2 additional field studies in the Shafter region through the end of the year. So I think once the fall hits, we're going to do 2 in some order. That's the current plan, given the fields that we have. So.
Thank you, Min, for that very detailed update. It felt like a lot. I do want to, Bianca, I see your hand. I want to acknowledge that, but I do want to start with our Spanish-speaking participants on the line to make sure they don't have any clarifying questions, because I know the translation perhaps did not catch up at certain point. But yes, so let's start with them.
It doesn't seem like we have any at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Naomi. Hey, Bianca, you're up.
Okay, I have a question. What are the mitigations that you are mentioning? Because for us to have another exceeding level, it is alarming. And for you to say it in the sense that it's not health concerning, everything's health concerning. If there's any type of drift in the community, it is illegal. Any drift is illegal in California. And for the monitor to pick up high levels of 1,3D is alarming. And community members should be know when these events happen. Another thing, it always happens during winter time. You mentioned that this application happened back in October 16, 2020. Okay, there's a peak time frame when these applications are happening in the community of Shafter. I thought that this AB 617 was going to be more in depth with applications, especially because DPR is only monitoring 1,3-D. That is concerning. If we have high levels of T-lone on a monitor that's only testing T-lone, just imagine the rest of the pesticides, the restricted material that are being applied in the Shafter community. That is alarming. That is a question for DPR. What are you guys doing? And another question for the Kern County Ag Commissioner: why is he allowing these type of applications to be happening in the community of Shafter, if knowing that this process, this AB 617, is a telescope for community, and it should bring a huge alarm for the Kern County Ag Commissioner, because we're hearing about this, and this is not going to stay quiet. This is going to go all the way up, because it's not the first application that has happened of high levels. It's not the second application. This is the third one since the whole AB 617 started. And one thing I do want to bring up, maybe as a motion for community members, if it's possible to do it now, what can we do at this point? One of them is to ban it in the Shafter area. Why? Because knowing that DPR only has a couple monitors in California, and having an exceeding level of T-lone of 1,3-D, it's alarming. And it should be done through the Kern County Ag Commissioner. Another thing, to have a notice of intent be public of this pesticide. If residents are being poisoned, they should at least know what they're being poisoned of. And there's money already allocated for notification. And the Kern County Ag Commissioner is giving us a BS on a type of notification that is not helping community members. It's only covering a little Band-Aid on what the big problem is. That the growers are poisoning our community, the growers are poisoning our people, our kids, and nobody is addressing this issue. Another thing, you did mention that there was 12 mitigations that happened in the Shafter. They're testing and things like that. We still haven't seen any results in. You had mentioned we were gonna get results back in May. You said mention in April and May. We're already in July. We haven't seen no results from the study that DPR has done. And that is another alarming thing. What is holding DPR down and giving us results of what your pilot studies is working on? I think I mentioned a lot of things, but if anybody could address it, please.
Thank you, Bianca. Yes, a lot of issues are bringing up, and as you're saying, health is always a critical issue for any community. So, Min, I don't know if you have answers to some of the questions Bianca raised.
Yeah, definitely. I'll try to address. I was trying to jot down as much, so if I miss anything, please let me know. So yeah, just sharing Bianca's concern. Yes, drift concern is always an issue for us, because at the end of the day, if things are done improperly or illegally, drift is a concern, and both the county ag commissioners and DPR take that very seriously. So what we're talking about, I think maybe there's a little bit of not necessarily misunderstanding, but maybe we're talking about two different things here. I mean, a lot of the air monitoring network, what we deal with is, again, it's long-term ambient air, and we're picking it up at a level that is below our screening levels. When it does trigger the screening levels, like I said before, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a concern. It does mean that we're looking into our mitigation measure, which, going back to the beginning of all this, 1,3-D is on the docket for being looked at, and doing an overall mitigation work is being done for it. So we are trying to address various aspects of that threshold. I think, Bianca, you had mentioned something about only 1,3-D is being looked at. I just wanted to clarify that with our AMN, we actually look at 36 pesticides within that region. So all of our AMN stations are 36 pesticides. It's 32 plus 4 breakdown products. And we're looking to add actually 4 additional chemicals that we're getting lab testing done right now.
Ming, when did you guys start? Because my understanding is that you mentioned maybe in 4 meetings ago that DPR was only monitoring T-loan. It was not doing the whole spectrum of the monitor. You said because of budget cuts that you guys so why weren't the residents informed about this issue?
So I apologize if I didn't inform. I thought I did. So at the beginning of the year, we went back to full capacity at Shafter. So we went back to doing 36. So for last year, yes, during the COVID year, we had issues with various county and district shutdowns. So during that time, we were doing solely 1,3-D for that community. But the year prior, we actually were still doing 36 pesticides for the region. So we for the most part, all of our AMN has always been targeting the 36 and now eventually 40, hopefully by the end of the year. So I apologize if that didn't come out clearly. And oh, the pilot results. Yeah, I apologize for that. I'm trying to get it through as fast as I can. It's in review with myself and with our along with us and our exec team. So I'll get that. I know that from what we looked at on the last year's application study, in comparison, it did show a good amount of emissions reductions based on soil moisture, which is one of the things that we theorized, and I think we're building the case for that currently right now. So I will get that information to you as soon as I'm able to. I think I got, if I missed anything, please let me know.
Thank you, Min, for providing a lot of answers. Bianca, your internet.
Motion because something should.
Bianca,
Hello?
you're breaking.
Hannah, hear me now?
You're breaking up. We did not hear. The beginning of your comment.
Well, I want to address another comment in regards of doing a motion that there should be something being happened. Well, something that happened because of this application. We're heading to the second year, and we don't want another exceeding level. So we want to bring everybody in the table that is responsible for these type of applications to be done. The Kern County Ag Commissioner, DPR, and the Air District, because we're under the microscope, and to have exceeding levels, that is concerning, and that is concerning for community health.
Bianca, I hear you. So this committee operates by consensus-based decision-making. So I hear your motion, your request to have different stakeholders at the table, and what I'm understanding in this meeting or as a separate meeting.
We're under a microscope, so let's do it in this meeting.
And I wonder if we can hear any other comments or thoughts from other community members on these suggestions from Bianca to see where you guys standing on that.
Hannah, before you move forward with that, can I just realized one thing. Bianca had asked about the notification. I just wanted to address that really quickly. So I don't want to speak for the CAC here, but I know DPR is working to do workshopping. I think they're pinning some stuff on the calendar for the fall. So once I get that information, and depending on who's invited to those things, I will definitely pass it along to the community so they're aware of the notification process, what's being talked about, and they can have a voice, because I think our department really wants to spread it out and hear what the concerns are, not the concerns, but what the asks are, like what specifically would make sense for your community.
Thank you for that. Annabelle, your hand is up.
Sí, queremos apoyar la moción de Bianca Aparte, pues sí sabemos que son 30 y tantas químicos que están revisando, pero la que más nos preocupa ahorita que ha subido el nivel es la telón. Entonces, fue violado eso, ese ranchero lo violó y queremos saber cuáles son las consecuencias y por qué no se notificó esa falta.
So we agree with, we want to agree with, I'm sorry, who was speaking before? Bianca. So they do know that there's 33 or 33 something of revising, and they want to know mainly the talon. Why was it being violated?
Thank you for that comment, Annabelle. It's noted. I don't know if there's any response to that, or that's something that we'll just note. I'm seeing none from Ming. Michelle, your hand is up.
Yes. Could I get a little clarification of what we're exactly talking about? I understand we had a spike, and but what the motion is and what would that motion do and where that motion would go? Could I get a little clarity of where we're heading with that?
Yes, Ryan, feel free to jump in anytime. So what I'm assessing the situation, the motion is on the table. We don't have really motions in our charter. So this community is operated by consensus building. So you guys are bringing the idea and we discuss that and see where consensus is. So what Bianca is proposing is to have a space for dialogue where all the stakeholders are together. And Ryan, I don't know what are the opportunities to explore this additional spaces for dialogues and what is feasible.
Yeah, I mean, I think we heard from the steering committee members that they'd like this to be discussed at a future community steering committee meeting. And I think through the agenda setting, we can kind of delve into what we're looking to have as far as a conversation and what things we're looking to discuss. And, I'm thankful that we do have all the different parties that were mentioned along with the CSC members at tonight's meeting.
Thank you for clarifying. So what I think I'm hearing, Bianca, thank you for bringing up the request. In the interest of time, we've heard and acknowledged this request, so we will revisit at the next agenda setting meeting where we are going forward with this request and what are logistics of bringing different people into the room. And I do want to acknowledge, Bianca, your chat comment.
I do have a comment because in the agenda items usually is just updates from DPR. I want to do a motion to bring all the parties in the mix. That means Kern County Ag Commissioner. He's a one big player in this situation because he's the one that approves all these applications that are poisoning the community of Shafter. So I really want to bring this motion to place to have all the key players and everybody to have a speaking role, because we don't need dead bodies here. We need people to speak up and say what they have to say.
And so I'm going to go ahead and jump in a little bit too, just to explain what Annabelle's comment was earlier. She basically mentioned that she is agreement with Bianca's comments, and that she is concerned with, what is being mentioned, and that there are 33 pollutants that are being measured, and she wants to know what are the consequences for these being violated, and that's her question is, what are the consequences for this?
So the consequences to an exceedance. So there's a couple of things. So with most of the pesticides that we have screening levels. So what that means is our human health assessment team works with the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment to develop these screening levels, just because nobody else federally has a health-based index. So what ends up happening is we take a look. The air monitoring group is charged with essentially that we monitor the ambient air in the region. We evaluate all of the data that comes in, and we continuously calculate for one of those, either the acute, which is the 24-hour, the subchronic, which is usually a 4-week average, and then the yearly average. If any of those exceedances happen, we have a systematic approach to it. We work with the CSCs to pull all the records, and then we begin our investigation internally to figure out if the application was performed legally. And then if it's not, then that's a different story. A legal application is a different story, and it's an enforcement issue. And that's where I can't speak for them because I'm not really sure how those investigations are done. But yeah, from there we reevaluate. And I think for the last, I think I saw Jane's comment within the chat box as well. Our team is charged with continuously evaluating, and we're noticing that there are these elevations. So we're taking a look to see if our mitigation is working. And that's been our charge since day one. So right now, that's what we're doing. We're taking a look to see, is it working? Are there conditions that we understand that are causing these detections? Is it global warming? It could be as simple as that. Is it malpractice in how things are applied? Is it an education thing? So we're taking a look. It's a grand spectrum of things, and I don't want to delay the topic here, but we take a look at all possible information that we have so that we can make a concerted scientific response to all of these. Because again, what I've mentioned before is all these have to lead and provide a foundation for potential mitigation measures moving forward. And that's what we're here to do.
Just want to check with Annabelle to make sure we answer her question.
I think her question also said when these detections come up, we also do inform the public. So we have various ways that we do that. We do have our quarterly updates to our database that we provide on our website. We also notify if it's within a school, one of the AMN stations that we have at a school. We do work with the school, and then we also work with the county ag commissioners to disseminate that information.
Ming, if you mentioned that you let us know every quarter, why was the application done in October and we found out about it in July? It's more than 6 months.
Yeah, so that goes back to my initial, so because detections and how we do our evaluations is not in real time, unfortunately. So once we pull the sample, we physically have to pull the sample down, take it to the lab. The lab has to actually run an analysis on it. So that in and of itself can go anywhere between, it's on average during the COVID season, it's been going about 2.5 months to 3 months. So that's a part of that delay. Once that number comes back to us, then we have to evaluate it as well. And then if it has to do with, in this situation, a high level that we're taking a look at, we have to do an internal investigation. So we don't want to go out and alarm people, but we also want to do our due diligence to make sure that what we're seeing adequately captures, because there's been situations in the past where our laboratory method failed. It caught something else that wasn't supposed to be there, and it was a false reading. So all these things we have to do first, and we have to go out and do diligence in the event that that information needs to be used as a foundation for something else.
Thank you, Min, for your patience and for answering all the good questions, all the valid questions. I do want to do a quick time check that we are at 6 p.m. We're running over a little bit of standing updates. Bianca, we heard your motion, your request loud and clear to have a more robust conversation, more robust dialogue that maybe goes beyond just traditional standing updates, and perhaps allocate a little bit more time and have more players in the room. So that request is on the table. Ryan mentioned that's something we can explore in the agenda setting meetings, explore the right avenues for that. I saw the thumb up from Gus. We've heard from Annabelle supporting your request. If other community members have any thoughts or reflections right now on that request, right now it's a good time maybe to raise your hand and give us a quick let us know where you stand, and or use the chat box. And meanwhile, I see another hand from Annabelle. And Annabelle, please help us to close that standing update agenda item. Help us to close it with your question or comment.
Yo, Felipa Trujillo.
Oh,
Sí,
Felipa.
apoyo todo lo que dice Bianca. ¿Me oyen?
Buenas tardes,
¿Sí me
Felipa.
oyeron?
Sí, buenas tardes,
¿Marisela?
Felipa. Sí, ¿me escucha?
No.
Yo le escucho. Okay, so this is Felipa Trujillo. She just wants to make motion or basically state that she agrees with all of Bianca's statements as well. So she's in agreement of her statement.
Thank you, Felipa, for that comment. Okay, well, I see no other hands in the participant box. I see no other comments in the chat. If there's anything you can think of, please feel free to use the chat, and I will keep moving us along to the next agenda item. So we are still in standing updates. We're running a little bit behind, but that's okay. We'll catch up. We have 2 more updates from our partner agencies, from the county and or city, and from CARB. So do we have anyone from the Kern County to share anything with the committee? Yolanda or Alexa? I don't know if you're on the line. It's hard to tell. Well, I guess you're not on the line today. Anyone from the city of Shafter?
This is Michael James, Public Works Director for Shafter. I have nothing to report since the last meeting. I understand, though, that we will be having some conversations with the district to talk about questions or requests they have with respect to some of the potential projects that have been submitted or proposed to the committee. So we look forward to that conversation, and hopefully by the next meeting we might be in a position to move forward funding some of those projects. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, moving on to CARB. Scott, good evening.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Scott Wall with the California Air Resources Board. I do have a quick update on the rail concerns that when BNSF does the switch work, the rail crossing is blocked, which causes traffic to back up in the community. Our rail staff at the Air Resources Board has made several attempts to reach out to BNSF, and most of them unsuccessful, but we did just recently actually receive a response from their legal staff. The response was basically that they're sorry to hear about the frustration with the crossing, and to please have the resident directly contact Lena Kent, and I'll put her information in the chat here as soon as I wrap up. But basically, I'll drop in a phone number and an email address for Lena Kent, who is their executive director of the public affairs. We unfortunately were not able to kind of achieve what we'd hoped, which was to actually get some concrete commitments out of them. So really the best next step from here is that I would encourage you to contact Lena directly to voice your concerns, call often, and I would encourage you to share this information with friends, family, and neighbors who are also concerned. And with that, any questions before I drop her information in chat, I'm happy to do my best to answer them.
Any questions for Scott?
Thank you.
I see no raised hand. Let me check with the Spanish line, Scott. Anyone on the Spanish line?
Sí, te lo voy a decir despacito para que se lo expliques bien, ¿ok? Mira, mi pregunta es, ¿por qué? Bueno, no por qué, que nos gustaría que el condado de Kern en veces fuera más flexible con las necesidades de la ciudad de Shafter. Dile eso, porque si no digo mucho.
So Mrs. Annabelle lets us know that she would like to know how Kern County could be more flexible with the needs of the community. Continúa, Annabelle.
La razón, ¿ya?
Sí.
La razón que yo digo esto es porque tenemos tantas necesidades y la ciudad lo sabe, ustedes lo saben, y cuando ponemos algo frente a la mesa, siempre hay que el condado no lo pasa, que el estado le corresponde o que la ciudad esto. Entonces, yo digo, si todos trabajaran unidos, juntos, esta ciudad, la ciudad de Shafter y otras ciudades estuvieran mejor, mejor capacitadas, mejor equipadas y con luz mercurial, mejor todas las necesidades que se necesitan. Y no fueran obstáculos tan grandes para no poder hacer nada. Nos estamos estancando por 2 años, más de 2 años, y la verdad que no se mira nada hasta ahorita como la luz mercurial, como cosas que hemos propuesto y que no se han visto. Qué bueno sería que el condado mirara, hiciera un poquito más de esfuerzo y nos ayudara.
Gracias. Annabelle says, and the reason why I am mentioning this is because we have been asking for these things for several years. It has now been 2 years since we have mentioned that we have needs as a community. We have asked for mercury lights, and that's something that has not occurred. We keep seeing toss-ups back and forth from the state to the city, and at the end of the day, we're not getting concrete results. And this is something that I feel is affecting our community, and we are just being left behind.
Annabelle, I hear you. I hear that it really bothers you, and I don't know if anyone has a quick response, or not quick, any type of response to Annabelle.
Yeah, Annabelle, I know the commitment that every member of this steering committee has put in, and the time and the effort and their desire to see these long-lasting, real changes in the community happen. And you know, we hear and understand the desire for it to happen as quickly as possible. And you know, it's definitely something that we are all working hard towards. And you know, I hate to you know, continue to repeat myself, but I mean, a level of patience with this, it is important. It is new in the approach that is being taken, where you're bringing together lots of different organizations, trying to accomplish very ambitious set of things. It's not, you know, one of the focuses of this legislation is not to focus on things that are already done. It's really to, you know, think of innovative ways to do things. And with innovation, there is a time component to doing that work in order to get it done and to get it done right. And I understand what that results in is sometimes is things not happening as fast as we would all like. But that doesn't mean that your efforts in this and your participation in this aren't important and don't have big ramifications and impacts, because it will. I mean, we have a set of you know, somewhere 40 to 50 measures that are included in the Shafter SERP, and we're committed to working with you to see all of them implemented and, you know, working towards that goal. And so don't lose hope, don't lose faith. You know, we're all going to continue to be here and continue to work on it.
¿Esa es la respuesta del condado?
Is that the answer from the county?
Alex, I do have your hand up. Thank you for chiming in. Good evening.
Hi, I apologize. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I apologize. I was having issues with my webcam before when we were asked to update our progress, and also I wanted to address Annabelle. As far as the progress, we are submitting an application. We mentioned it a couple of meetings ago to the CMAQ program for the Mexican colony sidewalks. That would be under the measure RD2 Road Dust 2. Once again, it's not guaranteed that the project would be funded, but we're applying for grant funds to attempt to fund the sidewalk project that has been requested by the community. And then also in terms of the street lights, if someone could reach out to me with the locations that are needing streetlights, I can get them in touch with the staff member who is in charge of our streetlights. We can let them know what the requirements are. In some cases, a community service area is required to be set up where each property owner must agree to pay a certain amount of money to fund the streetlights. So, I mean, I can get them in contact with the person that could let them know what the requirements are to initiate something like that. And I'm not sure if there were any other questions. There was a lot that was spoken. So if you caught something that I didn't, Hannah, please let me know.
Thanks, Alexa. And I do want to do a time check. We're almost at 6:15. Annabelle, I do see your hand, so let's just take another question to clarify that we address things, and so we can close the standing updates item.
Sí, yo, Livia Trujillo, otra vez. ¿Aló? Sí, sí, pues yo quería decirles que ya tenemos mucho en las juntas aquí trabajando con esto. Y yo estoy viendo, como dice Anabel, que no se hace nada. Y no tienen que esperar a nada porque el dinero lo dieron 83 millones para que se arreglara la ciudad de Shafter, que fue una de las escogidas para eso. Y por eso yo estoy esperando todavía que pedimos que pusieran árboles en la Lerdo y que arreglaran las banquetas de la Shafter Avenue, porque los niños caminan a la escuela en el invierno y está todo feo allí, porque no hay banquetas, y que arreglen un poco aquí. El dinero ya lo tienen, el dinero ya lo dieron. Entonces yo no sé qué cosa es lo que esperan. Yo me vine aquí a este pueblo, yo vivía en el norte, allá viví yo y tenía mi casa, y me vine aquí y compré una casa, según yo, para relajarme. Y no, porque aquí está un problema muy grande con la contaminación, y por eso yo invierto mi tiempo en esto para a ver qué es lo que podemos hacer. Queremos que ya no para uno, pero para los niños. Me traje a mis nietos, mis hijos. A mi nieto le dio la fiebre del valle, a mi nieta le dio, a mi esposo también, y muy mal que nos ha ido aquí. Y yo ya estaba muy contenta porque según ya pensé que se iba a arreglar aquí Shafter. Es una ciudad muy chiquita con 20,000 habitantes, y hay una contaminación muy grande por donde quiera, con los pesticidas, con los pozos de petróleo, porque hay como 300 pozos de petróleo, aparte los pozos que están muertos, esos contaminan mucho también. Entonces, por eso esperamos que ya hagan algo. Gracias, es lo que yo les quería decir.
Muchas gracias. Mrs. Trujillo lets us know. I wanted to say that we have already had a lot of meetings and nothing has been done. The money has been given to fix the city of Shafter. It's not like we're waiting for the money. It's already been authorized. We had asked for trees and sidewalks on Lerdo, and it is very difficult for the children to transit the area. And the money is not an issue. It's already there. I sold my house and I purchased a house here because I wanted to relax, and I come to have serious problems with the contamination. My son, my husband, both caught valley fever, and this is outrageous. We are living in a small community, and yet it has lots of contamination. We have about 300 oil wells in the area and many that are dead, and they are still causing a lot of contamination. That was supposed to be dry wells. Sorry.
Thank you for sharing this perspectives. Critically important, your lived experience. I think it's a perfect segue into our next agenda item, which is going to be enforcement, updates on the enforcement. But after that, we're going to have updates on the SERP, and I'm sure Ryan can circle back to some of the questions specifically about timelines on moving the projects forward. So if we can just pin that question and circle back to that later, so we can keep moving. Okay, we are running a little bit over time, but that's okay. We have a very good conversations, a lot of questions, a lot of perspectives. I hear you a lot of clear air district is here. Stakeholders are here. They're all listening. And to Ryan's point, he is emphasizing that the air district is committed to continue these dialogues and to moving things forward, even though they're not moving as fast as some of you wish. I do want to acknowledge there are some chat activities happening with Gwen clarifying some facts in the chat, so you're welcome to scroll through that. And that's just another point where perhaps some discovery of information, joint discovery of information is needed. So this committee, resident stakeholders are all on the same page about that. And quick chat activity also from a number of folks. So thank you for participating in the chat. And a couple of contact informations from Min and Scott. Okay, we're gonna keep going. We're gonna move to our enforcement updates from Air District and CARB. And I believe first we have Jennifer with the Air District.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Lettergerber. I'm the compliance manager in the district's Bakersfield office. I've been with the district a little over 13 and a half years now. I spent my whole time in compliance, and I've been the manager now for a little over 3 months. So I'm happy to be here tonight and to provide an update on our enforcement activities in the Shafter community for the first quarter of 2021. And this update has also been posted to the AB 617 Shafter community page under the report section, and it's available in both English and Spanish. And so for our residential wood burning curtailment, which is District Rule 4901, and you may know it as the corresponding check before you burn program, it's in effect from November 1st through February each year. And in the SERP, we committed to enhance enforcement, which means 4 hours of enforcement activities on each wood burning curtailment day. And for the months of January and February, we received 1 public complaint and we investigated. We also issued 7 notices of violation under District Rule 4901. For our illegal open burning, which is District Rule 4103, we committed to 1 targeted enforcement effort every quarter. And for quarter 1, we responded to and investigated 6 public complaints. 4 of those were for residential open burning and 2 were for agricultural burning. And we issued 5 notices of violation. For the statewide anti-idling enforcement program, our SERP commitment is a targeted enforcement effort every quarter. And there were no violations of CARB's truck and bus regulation observed during quarter 1. For our stationary source inspections, we've committed to increased inspection frequency at facilities with emissions violations in the last 3 years. And our inspections can entail utilizing VOC and portable analyzer emissions units and forward-looking infrared cameras. And so for the first quarter, the district conducted a total of 38 stationary source inspections. 32 of those were compliance inspections, 3 were follow-up inspections, 2 were grant inspection, and 1 was a source test observation. And we issued 4 violations. 1 was procedural or administrative in nature, and 3 were emissions related. For our public complaints, there were 8 total public complaints responded to in the community in quarter 1. 1 was an odor complaint, 1 was a pesticide spraying complaint, 4 were for residential open burning, and 2 were for agricultural open burning. And I just wanted to express my appreciation for all of the extra eyes we have in this community. I know we recently worked with Dora and others on responding to issues in the community, and we just really appreciate all the support. And just as a reminder, complaints can be reported to the district by telephone at 800-870-1037, on our district website at valleyair.org, or through our Valley Air mobile app. And that concludes my update, and I'm happy to take any questions. Oh, I think you're muted.
I'm mute, great. Let me do it all over again. Thank you, Jennifer, for that update. And Zan just dropped the links to English and Spanish version of the document. It's just one page and it contains all the numbers that Jennifer just went over. And I'm pretty sure you guys know how to report the complaints, but just in case, Jennifer, if you can drop that information one more time in the chat box, why not? Gus, I see your hand. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Thank you, Jennifer, for that overview. My question was, and you might have gone over and I didn't hear, but recently there was an update to the flare rule. And I want to know if, has there been any activity, whether it's decrease in reporting or increase in reporting because of the flare amendment that recently passed?
We did recently update Rule 4311. As far as reporting, from what I can recall, all the reporting requirements stayed the same as far as the community or the facilities notifying us of unplanned flaring events and submitting an annual report for flares that are subject to 4311. So those things did not change as far as reporting requirements for 4311.
Thank you.
I see no more questions with the raised hands, but I do want to circle back to our Espanol line, who they received a paper version of this one pager in advance and probably had a chance to review to see if they have any questions for Jennifer.
It does not look like we have a comment in Spanish or a question.
Thanks. And Zan is also dropping links in the chat to district enforcement report and other reports. Okay, Eric, we're gonna go to you next. Thank you for your patience.
Thanks, Hannah. I think Julia was going to share the screen and I can get started.
I think she will. Here you go.
All right, so hello everyone. My name is Eric Bissinger and I'll be taking over for Justin Shields. Justin has been promoted within the enforcement division, and in the past, I was the backup person for Shafter. So now I will be taking over the responsibilities and providing this update. So diesel enforcement sweeps. I apologize for this, but the first quarter 2021 inspection data is not available at this time. Our programmers are working to have the data regularly updated on a quarterly basis. And I'm developing a quarterly document that will summarize our enforcement activities for Shafter. But if you want to see past inspections that have occurred in the boundary and what the outcomes were, please take a look at CARB's enforcement visualization tool. Scott's going to put that in the link in the chat. So in the past, we have found our inspections resulted in a high compliance rate. Some inspections and programs are found to be as high as 90%. And because of the high inspection rates, we wish to continue to work with the steering committee to identify additional locations to inspect where non-compliance may be occurring. And COVID restrictions are loosening up, and I was able to go to Shafter in June, where I found some off-road equipment that did not have identification numbers on 3 pieces of construction equipment. So we were working with the responsible party to correct that issue. And also our enforcement annual report was approved by the board, and in there it describes all the CARB enforcement activities for the year 2020. And Scott is gonna put in a link to that annual report also. Thanks, Scott. So truck and bus, our truck and bus update. We have good news for the truck and bus rule. In the enforcement division's annual report that I just mentioned, the statewide compliance rate for the truck and bus rule has risen to 98% compliant. So this is due to the fact that truck owners now must document that their vehicle is compliant with the regulation in order to get their vehicle registered with DMV. So using Shafter zip codes in 2020, DMV placed registration holds on approximately 150 dirty heavy-duty diesel vehicles. These were all registered in the Shafter boundary. And in 2021, we estimate an additional 80 Shafter heavy-duty diesel vehicles that will no longer be able to register. So the Cal EPA initiative, so Cal EPA has started a sector-based initiative that brings all the boards under the Cal EPA umbrella together to focus their attention on oil and gas facilities in disadvantaged communities. So a team from each board will evaluate the facilities from all the sources, including air, water, toxics, solid waste. And so recently, as part of that effort, CARB, in cooperation with the district, we inspected 2 oil and gas facilities in Shafter. And any leaks that were detected under CARB's oil and gas methane regulation or the district's VOC rules, they were repaired. They were also verified with a district follow-up inspection, and no violations were issued since all repairs were made within the regulatory timeframes. So supplemental environmental projects, or SEPs, a SEP update. SEPs are funded with money collected from case settlements and is used to fund environmental projects in disadvantaged communities throughout California. So in Shafter, the Central California Asthma Collaborative has 2 SEP projects funded. One is comparing outdoor PM 2.5 levels with students and their outdoor activities. And another is an asthma study that is looking at the impact of 50 low-income residents. So if you have any project ideas that need funding, please reach out to me. We can maybe put a SEP project together. And finally, anti-idling signs. Anti-idling signs are available. We have 2 kinds of signs that we can distribute to heavy truck activity areas within the boundary. And we have a second one that's designed for school districts. So please contact me if you're interested in helping me get these signs up. And so that update, that's pretty much concludes my update, and I'm open for any questions.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. So Eric, can you clarify reaching out about signs to help exactly with what?
Well, I mean, if you know areas where there's heavy duty, maybe diesel idling, and it seems to be problematic, and we can work with the city to try to get these signs installed in that area where there's, I mean, even if they're not idling, it's just good to have the signs up. And as far as the schools go, if there's schools that you would like me to communicate with, or that you think there's too much idling going on, we can work with the school district and the school to maybe get these signs up.
Thank you for clarifying that. Any questions for Eric? Linda.
Hi, Eric. I know we had worked before and we got a lot of the anti-idling signs to, I think, the Richland district. And we had also talked about them going to possibly Shafter Parks and Rec and the Learning Center. But there was something that happened with the sign. It wouldn't correlate. Do you know if that got fixed? I can't really remember because I think this all happened last year. Do you have any examples you could email? And then I could email it to those folks to see if they would like some.
Examples of what the signs look like, or
yes, for the schools, if it would work at the Learning Center and then also at the Parks and Rec district. A lot of people sit and watch their kids, or used to when they played soccer or baseball, and they'd sit in their car at practice with their cars idling. So if we could reach out maybe to Shafter Parks and Rec and see if they'd like to put that on their fencing.
Yeah. I mean, the the one that's focuses more on heavy duty diesel vehicles is more, you know, regulation type. But the ones at the schools are kind of more general, just kind of, I wouldn't say no idling, but anti-idling. So it just kind of just says, you know, turn off your engine and stuff like that. So they probably work in the parks. I'd have to talk to, you know, you and other people just to see if it would work and if, you know, if my supervisors are okay with it. But they're designed for the schools. But I don't see why they couldn't put it over. But I'd have to, you know, talk to some people.
Okay. Well, you just let me know, and I could always give you the contact information or forward your information to them.
Yeah. I'll put my information in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
Wanda. Any other questions for Eric? Or suggestions? Anyone on the Spanish line?
We don't have any at the moment.
Thanks, Naomi. Okay, well, that concludes enforcement updates. Agenda item, we're gonna keep moving. And I see more clarifications from Nan being dropped in the chat. So I do want to acknowledge there's a lot of chat activity going on today, which is great. I'm glad you guys are participating. A lot of links is being dropped in the chat. So the Air District posts the meeting recording and the chat transcript online. It's going to be posted probably tomorrow. Correct me if I'm wrong, Zon. So you're welcome to go on your community webpage, download the chat so you can, revisit the chat, read all this information you didn't have a chance to, and most importantly, get all the links that you need to. Okay, we're gonna keep moving with our last agenda item, which is SERP measures review. And I'm gonna pass it to Ryan to give us a brief update on some of the measures and circle back to the earlier question. And then we're just gonna open the floor for additional questions or thoughts about any measures that have been or have not been mentioned. Ryan.
Yeah, thanks, Hannah. I'll start off, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian Dodds and John Stagnero from our team to provide the updates on the SERP implementation. I did want to address Senora Trujillo's comment in regards to the funding that's available in the SERP and what's available for projects. And I do want to remind everybody that having things in the SERP is very important because that allows us to budget and reserve those funding for those different projects. However, those projects, before we can spend any of that money, still have to be approved by the California Resources Board. So we've been working with them on numerous of them, and we've been successful in getting many of them approved. We are working on those project plans for the infrastructure improvements, including roads and sidewalks. And we have vegetative barriers and urban greening that they are currently evaluating for the community. So that's the first step. Once that's approved, then we have the authority to then start spending the funds on the measures in accordance with the adopted community emissions reduction program. So I just think it's an important topic that we continue to talk about, that even though we got the community emission reduction program approved, there's still these ongoing steps that we need to undertake legally to be able to spend those incentive dollars on those projects. And once again, I understand the frustration with having to wait on these different types of things. And we've had numerous conversations with California Resources Board exploring how we can expedite and speed up this process. And I'm hopeful that moving forward that we are going to be able to get some of these project plans completed a little bit faster. So at this point, if anybody has any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Brian Dodds.
Yeah, and before you do that, Ryan, let me quickly summarize. So what I'm hearing, the Air District is kind of working in 3 avenues, 3 roles, and it's all simultaneous work. You are talking to the CSC members to identify potential projects and locations. At the same time, you're working with the county and the city, where they also bring in the projects to identify those projects are eligible for the program. And then you're also working with the CARB to submit the project plans. So kind of you having this jump start identifying projects, but then next steps is to see if projects are eligible and have the project plans approved. And that's where we kind of having this a little waiting period.
And that's definitely where this steering committee plays an important role. And you know, Mike James, who's on here, you know, he's you know, shared some thoughts on different projects, and you know, depending on the steering committee's desires, maybe next meeting we can go into more focused discussion on a few of the things that we do have approval with, and to see maybe some of these projects get moving forward. And so, yeah, and we need a lot of that input from the steering committee on where this is going to be most beneficial. And Senora Trujillo definitely shared some thoughts on where some of these things could be done for the betterment of the community, and we can look at that in conjunction with some of the other feedback that the city and we've also received. So thank you.
Thanks for clarifying. Linda, let's have your question answered before we pass it to Todd.
Hi, Ryan. I just wanted to see, was this the update that we were going to go over at 6:15 on the vegetarian barriers and urban greening and school bus replacement, or is that still coming later?
No, that's what Brian Dodds is going to be covering this.
Sorry, I didn't.
No. You did not miss it.
I love that you're paying attention to the agenda, Linda. Good job.
Print it out.
Well, maybe that's a good segue if there's not any additional questions. What I wanted to do is kind of give an update on some of the measures, particularly the ones that were listed on the agenda, but also have time to answer any questions that the steering committee might have. It's great to see everybody again tonight. I wanted to start with our school bus replacement projects that we're working with Richland Unified on currently. They're continuing to work with PG&E on the infrastructure issues that are associated with installing that charging. PG&E is going to be out in the very near future to do a sitting analysis to see where things would go and be able to provide estimates on costs and things along those lines in terms of getting that infrastructure in place. Richland has also expressed interest in an additional school bus. So they have 4 kind of under contract already. They've recently submitted an application for a 5th school bus. So we're excited about the direction that they're headed. There's still, again, work to do on, you know, infrastructure and making sure that they can charge these buses, and then also making sure that the buses meet the needs of the school district. That's the most important thing. They need to be able to do their job in transporting kids to school and the activities that they do throughout the day. But that one's going well. Excuse me. Wanted to touch on our lawn and garden equipment replacement projects. We've seen we've done some outreach recently on the program, trying to get some additional interest and make sure people are aware that this funding is out there and available. We're currently working with a local hardware store in Shafter to hold a replacement event. We've heard, you know, some feedback that it could be difficult for people to get their old lawnmowers to dismantlers. We're trying to have kind of an event where somebody could come and drop off their old lawnmower and get a new lawnmower, purchase a new lawnmower at sort of the same location. So we're looking at some dates maybe in the fall to kind of have some sort of event like that. As we get closer, as we're working on the details, we'll be sure to, you know, communicate obviously with the steering committee and work with you guys to help get the word out that those activities are happening. But that could be a real great event for the residents of Shafter. We're also trying to get some additional dismantlers on board that may be closer to the Shafter area. Right now they're in Bakersfield. We're trying to get some on board that may be a little bit closer, maybe a little bit more convenient. It challenges that not all dismantling facilities are willing or able to participate in this type of program, depending on what they're able to accept and do, and sort of any limitations that they might have there. But we're hoping to see more interest in that program, and that's available now for residents to participate in and take advantage of. It was mentioned earlier, but on our road paving and sidewalks projects, CMAQ applications are going to be submitted in August for potential projects in the Shafter area. And then we're having ongoing discussions with the city on potential projects within the community for road paving, sidewalk installations, bike lanes, those types of issues, those types of projects. In addition, we've got our Charge Up project plan approved. As Ryan talked about, we need to submit these to CARB for review and approval. Charge Up was recently approved. That's funding for electric vehicle infrastructure within the community. And so we want to work with the city and the community to help identify potential locations for charging infrastructure installations, and get the funding out there in the community so people can start doing those projects. Vegetative barriers and urban greening continues to be a high priority for the committee and projects that you want to see. We're listening and we're incorporating your feedback. We want to develop a measure that's going to work for the committee and the community. As currently written, the measure was to provide some match funding to some state funding that could be used within the community, and some additional funding for a study. And we're looking at ways that we can potentially, change that to be a little bit more helpful in getting projects completed and utilize that funding for those types of urban greening and vegetative barrier measures within the Shafter community. And then the last note I wanted to make, and then we can dive into some questions. We've got a few project plans that are very near completion. We're incorporating feedback from CARB, and we'll be resubmitting those for approval in the very near future. Burn Cleaner, which is our program that would replace wood burning devices with cleaner natural gas alternatives. That one is nearly done. Our truck replacement, yard truck vehicle replacement, and vehicle repairs are all very close to being done, and should be submitted to CARB within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And with that, maybe I'll take a few questions and see what kind of feedback you guys have.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Brian. I do see 3 hands with Annabelle, Winda, and Bianca. We'll just go in that order. Annabelle.
No es pregunta, simplemente que nos vamos a pasar otra vez otro año con proyectos, con bonitos pensamientos y con bonitas ideas, y no salimos de ahí.
So Mrs. Annabelle lets us know, not a question, just a statement. Are we going to spend another year with just creative ideas, nice ideas, and no action?
We can definitely go through the tracker. We do have projects that have been implemented for low dust nut harvester, alternative to ag burn. We've got tractors being replaced. So we can go through and take a look at those. I think as Ryan kind of touched on, this process, unfortunately, can seem to take a while, for sure. I think for the most part, in terms of submitting these project plans and working with CARB, we're near the finish line on quite a few of these.
Thanks, Brian. To kind of restate, not all the projects are being implemented, but a lot of wheels are in motion to keep it moving and see more progress as these plans will get approved by CARB. And the area district, based on what Brian is saying, is already incorporating a lot of your feedback into this project, so they are ready to go when they're approved. Winda.
Hi, Brian. Sorry, I wrote down a couple questions. So on the school bus replacement, you said that Richland was working with PG&E on some of the costs. any of the Air Board money able to help them out if they can't afford the infrastructure on the ground?
Yes. So
Okay.
the idea is that PG&E will cover as much as they can under their grant program. There's infrastructure funding that we have available through 617 that we can help, bridge that gap. PG&E may or may not be able to pay for 100% of those costs that are associated with that installation, but we think we'd be able to pay for quite a bit, if not all, of the remaining costs. What we'll need to do is understand, once PG&E has identified what they can pay for, what is actually left to pay for, and whether the CARB guidelines would allow us to fund those types of those costs. There may be ineligible costs along the way, so we need to have a full understanding of what the installation looks like and how much would be left to pay for. But that would be an option.
Is that something the steering committee can come back if we have extra funds available from other programs that aren't being used to help out the school?
Potentially, I think the biggest thing is going to be, identifying what costs are left to pay for and whether or not that fits within the existing framework of CARB's guidelines for those types of projects, more so than the availability of any funding.
And were they able to get superchargers? I know there was a concern about them making routes and then coming back and charging within the time the kids are at school. We were able to work all that out.
So I don't know that anything's finalized on that particular question, but the last I had heard, they were looking at sort of the level 2 chargers, which was typically what you do, charge it overnight, and then do opportunity charging throughout the day. Not necessarily the superchargers that you might find at like a Tesla charging station where they can charge a car in 15 or 20 minutes or something like that. It's still a little bit longer period of time, but for the most part, those types of charging installations would work for school buses.
Okay, and then you said that they are trying to get a 5th bus. We had 8 allocated for this, right? And I was just wondering if we had reached out to Rio Bravo Greeley School, which is to the south of us, and then also Maple School that's to the north. Were they interested in the buses at all?
We've been talking to some of the other schools in the area, but we don't have any applications as of yet. And so we'll continue to work on that. We definitely want to see the full utilization of this measure in the Shafter community.
So one more thing, Grimway, which I've mentioned before, is a newer school to our area, and they do not have any buses to, I guess, give you in exchange. If those other 3 buses are not allocated to a school that can give you a diesel bus or whatever you need, an out of compliant bus, is there a way for the committee to maybe talk about giving one or to Grimway schools so that they can have a cleaner burning bus?
Yeah,
right now for the
I
kids.
think that's a good question. And the way the CARB guidelines are structured, we're taking an old diesel bus and replacing it with newer, cleaner, in this case, electric. And so you can get that emission reduction that's associated with replacing that old bus. And so it would need to be something that's kind of outside of the CARB guidelines, and we may need to do a project plan. We may need to discuss with CARB if that's something that they would even kind of consider for this type of activity. But it's a good question, and I think one that we don't necessarily have an answer to right now, but we'd have to do some investigation and see if that's something that we could consider.
Is that something that you'd like to have me contact the school and talk to you so we can get that going? I don't know how long that process would take.
I think maybe as a next step, we can talk with our CARB colleagues and see if a project plan for that type of activity would be something that they could consider, and then kind of go from there.
They are a growing school. I mean, they're going to be moving up, I think, to 8th grade. So it's a elementary and junior high. So they're getting more kids. Another question I had, the vegetative barriers in urban greening, I know that's been something that I've really pushed. I was just wondering the status with CARB, where we're at with that. Do you think we'd get approval somewhat soon? And then also in, maybe I'm jumping ahead, in our last meeting, there was discussions. I think maybe Jessica had mentioned that y'all were looking into maybe getting rid of some of this match funding. Did that come to fruition? I know we would have to come up with 1.78 million for the sidewalks and then a lot of money for the urban greening. And I was just wondering if there's something this committee could do to help show the need or write letters or anything we can do.
Yes, so to answer your questions, I don't think at this point the match is still part of the SERP as it's currently approved, and we're looking at how to, you know, maybe do something different than what's in that approved measure. CARB did approve, as it was sort of written, our project plan for vegetative barriers and urban greening. I should have mentioned that in my updates. I would think I went through them too quickly. But that did get approved, but it's sort of as was outlined in the SERP. So a match to other funding for a total of $250,000. I think up to $50,000 was what we put in the SERP, matching to other state dollars. But we are investigating and looking at any potential ways that we can maybe do away with that match funding. But at this point, the match is still sort of in place. And I think hopefully in the very near future, we'd have some feedback on, you know, what we think we can do in terms of maybe moving forward without that match requirement.
With that being said, though, with some of the other projects that put in maybe landscaping or trees or greenery around Shafter, we can use that dollar amount to go towards that match funding?
I think we can be creative on how we look at that match. Normally, it would need to be some sort of dedicated funding that we would be putting on top of to kind of move forward. Not sure if Ryan has thoughts on how we would do that, but I know we've been trying to look at, you know, whether or not some of the stuff that's been going on can be considered match, because it's a little bit outside the framework for how we would normally look at things.
Yeah, and I know, Linda, we've had those conversations too, and you know, kind of having a broad view of what the match is for these projects. But like Brian said, and what others have brought up here, is the timing of this. I think where we were, you know, a little over, or close to a year and a half ago, when the community emissions reduction program was adopted, you know, and the funding and opportunities that were available at that time, as a state, as a nation, as a world, we're just in a much different place. And so, you know, we definitely want to hit those targets that are in the community emissions reduction program. And so we definitely feel it's important to evaluate the way that the community emissions reduction program was structured to be able to get this work done. And so we're in conversations about that right now. And there may be an update in August, a more in-depth update on that specific topic at the August meeting. But we're looking at it, we're evaluating it, and we'll bring it back for discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Linda, all excellent questions, as always. I do want to acknowledge the time. We're at we're at 6:55, so our time is over. I do see two more hands from Bianca and Annabelle, so let's take two more questions about SERP measures, and if you have any additional questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box. Bianca, thank you for your patience.
Hi, I wanted to bring up you had mentioned the exchange of the mowers,
yes,
the grass mowers in the fall. I think we've waited for a while already. We've gone a couple months already with the same question, like what are community residents going to do? They already have their mowers ready to go. The applications we have them filled out. The issue is, like, where do we do the whole process? Is there any possibility that the air district could actually do the job? Because if we keep waiting all the way till the fall, then this is money that maybe later on could be allocated for something else that residents are are fighting for. They really want this to happen in their community, but they don't have the flexibility to go down to Bakersfield and do the whole exchange process. So I want to bring it up to the Air District. What is the Air District going to do? We can't wait all the way till the fall again to do this program. And I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be curious if the community organizations have ideas on how to make that work. We've talked to our partnering dismantlers. They're not necessarily in a position to kind of be mobile and go and pick those up throughout the area. So, you know, really we do need to
Can the Air District do it?
I don't believe that we have the resources that we could take that part on. You know, the people would need to go to a participating dismantler to take their old lawnmower as part of exchanging for a new one.
Because if you really look at the distance between the dismantler and here in Shafter, it's about a 48-minute drive. It is a long ways. So I don't know what can the Air District do in making that possible, the flexibility to make it possible here in the area. Have you talked to the recycling, or do you need any support from the community, a sign-on letter, things like that? Try to make that possible.
Bianca, I mean, that is something like that Brian was talking about. I mean, we understood, we looked at the participation levels in the program to date. We've heard the concerns. And so what Brian's talking about is, you know, doing an event is, it's going to take some planning in order to be able to put the right pieces in place to be able to do it. You know, getting, you know, partnering with a dismantler to bring something to be able to haul off those equipment, partnering with a local business to you know, provide the electric lawnmowers. We're having to get creative here to do these things, understanding the challenges that this is posing. And so, yeah, I mean, we're looking at, you know, what we can do. I mean, when we opened it up, we thought there would be opportunity that people would be able to participate in the program. And unfortunately, we're seeing some of the real life challenges with it. And so, yeah, we're having to get creative and, you know, think about this. And yes, we do want to work with the community on how we can go about doing this and getting just a real high level of interest and participation in that.
Thanks, Ran. So this is something we can revisit and to hear perhaps some alternative solutions, ideas, but Bianca, we do hear the concern with the distance. Thank you for bringing that up and sharing. Annabelle, last question of the evening from you.
Sí, Linda, es para Linda. ¿Sabía usted que el ABC 1000 también tiene fondos para banquetas? Si podía investigar el ABC 1000 con la AB 617, se podría juntar una buena suma y ya nomás sería comenzar el proyecto, pienso yo. No sé si usted tiene más comunicación con la ciudad o con el AB 617, porque parece que está muy bien comunicada. Podían juntar esas dos sumas y si se podría hacer algo para la comunidad. Es todo.
This comment is actually for Linda. Says Miss Annabelle. Linda, did you know that ABC 1000 also has funds that together with AB 617 could provide the funds needed? Maybe you that are better connected with the city can perhaps find more information about this potential funding.
De que está involucrada y a ella sí le dan datos y respuestas concretas.
We know that you are very involved and you get very concrete answers.
Thank you so much. How do I find out about the SB 1000? I don't know what that is. Is it?
Who can Linda connect with?
How do I get?
With the city of Shafter.
Sí, ABC 1000 es con el plan general de aquí de la ciudad de Shafter.
It sounds like Miss Annabelle saying that ABC 1000 is with the general plan of Shafter.
Anabel, está hablando del SB1000, ¿verdad? I'm just clarifying. I think she's talking about SB, but she keeps referring to it as ABC 1000.
Thank you, Marisela.
And if we have Michael on the line, maybe he can drop the point of contact as well for Linda. I do want to acknowledge we're at 7:02 and we have a couple more wrap-up items we want to do. So if anyone has specific contact information for Linda to connect around SB 1000 with the city of Shafter, please drop the names in the chat box. Okay, we're gonna
quick, Hannah, can you hear me?
ABC 1000.
Hi, John.
Hi, yeah, John Stagnero here. I just realized that we're all running short on time. I had an update to provide for some land use planning measures from the SERP tracker. And I don't know if we want to perhaps table that for the next meeting, being mindful of the time, but I am prepared to give an update if we're all prepared for it.
Yeah, Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong on the fly, but since you guys did not have a chance to connect with the city of Shafter, perhaps we're going to pin that update and the conversation so we have a more robust discussion after you reconnecting with Michael and with the city of Shafter. And since we're out of time.
Yeah, that's fine. We can hold off on it.
Okay, folks. Well, the lessons learned, we need to put a little bit less items on the agenda. I do my best to keep us on track, but a lot of robust discussions and good questions, and we want to provide space for you to ask as many questions and share your thoughts as possible. Thanks, John, for chiming in. Sorry about that. Ryan, I'm gonna turn it to you for another quick update and help us to wrap up this meeting since we don't have community co-host. Please volunteer.
No, thank you. And so I think there was some questions from some of the steering committee members about what happens with after the last meeting. There was the county had shared the La Colonia sidewalk and road improvement projects. And after garnering support from the members in attendance at the last month's meeting, the district did, we received a letter of support template from the county, in which case we provided a letter of support on behalf of the community steering committee for that project, which John or Zong can drop in there to see that letter of support. The other thing I wanted to quickly discuss was during that meeting, we also talked about the importance of letters coming from steering committee members and the process for letters from the steering committee to be shared or that are on behalf of the entire steering committee, and not looking to limit the ability of steering committee members themselves from being able to provide comments on a wide variety of things, but being mindful of if there are letters that are being sent that it reflects that they're only on behalf of certain members in those instances. And so the reason I'm bringing this up is a few days after the last meeting in that conversation, there was another letter that was sent out, and it was still titled AB 617 Shafter Steering Committee. While the message itself did highlight the fact that it was from members of the steering committee. And so the thing I would like to point out is just the header of that it still would leave one to believe that that letter is really from the entirety of the community steering committee. So just want to reemphasize the importance of making sure that the communications that are going out, that it's reflective of the people that are sending it out, and maybe not committing or having it being interpreted as being from the entirety of the committee without the entirety of the committee having an opportunity to hear and to weigh in on it. So I just wanted to share that and thank everybody for good dialogue. We are going to continue to work very hard with all of you, with all of our partner agencies, yeah, we're trying to be as creative as we can to find ways to get this work done within the timeframes. And I know in my heart of hearts it's going to get there, and we're going to get these things done. And just glad to be working on it with all of you. And we understand it's not always easy conversations, but they're conversations that need to happen. And the community steering committee has definitely been the space and the forum to have these conversations and to share these thoughts and ideas. And we definitely want to keep it that way and want to continue to work with all of you. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Ryan, for reassuring the continuous commitment to dialogue and keep the work happening. Okay, we're going to go into public comment period. We did receive a number of public comments in the chat from Jane, I think, Selen, and that comment, Min has addressed that comment. We have received comments, I believe, from Laura, several comments, and Air District staff addressed those comments in the chat as well. So thank you so much for submitting those comments. Anything else we have on the Facebook or YouTube or via email?
None on YouTube.
Okay. All right, with that, we're 7 minutes over time. I do apologize for running a little bit late with this meeting. I've captured a number of action items that I will forward to the Air District with this. After everything we've heard, all the requests, so everything has been noted and captured. Thank you for your participation. Thank you for your patience. Hopefully stay cold and go have your dinner and spend time with your families. And I'll see you next month. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.